Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. The next episode of Red Valkyrie is about to start. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Red Valkyrie. I am your host, Shae Zombie, and I am here with the super amazing Anthony. How are you doing, sir?
I'm going good. Thank you for having me on, Shae.
Absolutely, man. So I'm really excited because I, like most people who didn't grow up in Louisiana or New Orleans, I have like this love mystery. Like, I really want to know more about New Orleans, and you have an entire book that centers around a lot of that lore, which is so exciting for me to see. So I'm going to kick it over to you right now for the pitch, just because I've been waiting all day for this.
Well, thank you, Shae. I have to first say I love the costume. I love the outfit.
Hey, thanks.
It looks beautiful. It looks wonderful.
I just threw it together. No, this was the
Hey, look, well, you're doing a hell of a job. Hell of a job, man. Like I said, you're ready for the Mardi Gras, man.
Absolutely, man. Sign me up.
Absolutely. Well, this book is called God's Hand, and the quick pitch on it is basically it's about New Orleans legends. It's about Jean Lafitte. Essentially, Jean Lafitte is called in to solve the murder of Marie Laveau, who is his old partner and old lover. And when they come into the city, Jean Lafitte has been exiled. He's been in exile for about 15 years due to an event called the Katrina incident, which I'll explain later on. But so he comes in. He's not very well received, and he has 48 hours to solve the murder. As he goes in, what he comes to find is that things from his past, from the Katrina incident, have been left undone, and those sins come back to haunt him, and he must rectify that in order to find out who killed Marie and to restore her soul. And in the process, they come to find out that there's a lot more that has happened in the last 15 years that he's been in exile than they thought at first. And so it's a supernatural book. It's got a lot of action adventure, and it's got the New Orleans flavor to it. So that's my elevator pitch on it.
I like it. Good hell, this art is so cool. I really love the art. I mean, it helps that she's like a super hot demon chick.
that's one of them. I mean, the idea behind the whole book. I mean, what it really is about establishing this new world. And I was influenced a little bit by Lovecraft, and I really enjoyed. What I loved about Lovecraft was that he created this world and then he opened it up, and people had access to use this world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, well, how do I take Lovecraft and how do I mix it into New Orleans lore? Because essentially the project started as a challenge. Basically, I was challenged to essentially create a New Orleans story that essentially was about New Orleans, but it also used New Orleans legends, actual New Orleans characters. Could I do that? And so that's what I kind of went in and did. But then I was like, well, how do I mix in this stuff? And so I came up with this idea that essentially the ancient gods of chaos, the Cthulhu mythos and whatnot, were the original gods of chaos. And from these gods of chaos, every monster in known history were born. They are the fathers and the mothers of every monster. And so what happens is these monsters then at some point decide, well, we want power. We want control. We don't like chaos. We don't like this disorder. We want control. And so they essentially go to war against these Lovecraftian ancient gods, and then they banish them into a pocket dimension or into a parallel dimension.
Mm-hmm.
Well, once that happens, then you have like 1,000-year war where you have all these monsters who go to war with each other for control of the planet. And at some point, what happens is they realize that in the process, they're just essentially tearing everything up. And so they sign the treaty and they sign a truce, and they divvy up the world, which is why you have African lore, you have Greek lore, you have Middle Eastern lore, you have monsters in each area you go to, Asia, all these have different monsters and different lores, and they basically separate everything. Well, from this, you have these basically these paranormal crime divisions, which basically go around and they basically monitor all of this stuff. They make sure that, werewolves don't start killing people too much, and vampires don't cross lines and whatnot. So what happens is you have these casters who basically cast these veils, right?
Right.
So they keep everything that looks like basically a normal world. So you'd be walking down the street and you'd see somebody get shot. Well, in reality, it's not a gunshot victim; it's an actual werewolf attack. And so what happens is these paranormal crime scene investigators come in and they investigate these murders and these crimes or these occult crimes and things like this. So it's kind of like Men in Black and a mix between Harry Potter and that whole thing like that. So Jean Lafitte is a part of this. Him and Marie Laveau, and so him and Marie Laveau basically are over New Orleans, that portion of the city, and what happens is as they're tracking down this, it's called the Griever, and these Grievers can reap souls, and so they track this thing down and they track it down into this hospital. It's called Lindsay Boggs. It's an actual hospital.
Okay.
And in the process of tracking this thing down, Marie Laveau goes to cast this spell, and what happens is the spell backfires, and it basically kills everyone within a 3-mile radius. It just basically sucks their souls into a nexus point, and then it shoots back out, and it causes this huge negative wave. In the process, what happened was it took Katrina, the storm, from a 1 to a 5, and then it caused all of this damage. Well, Jean Lafitte takes the rap for it, and he basically takes the entire blame for it. So he's exiled from New Orleans. He's exiled; he can never come back and whatnot. So what happens is he becomes basically gun for hire. He hunts down monsters and whatnot. He's a mercenary. And he builds a little team and shit like this. So the story picks up with them getting a call saying Marie Laveau's been murdered and her soul's been stolen. And so he could, they want him to come back. And when he comes back, they tell him you got 48 hours to find out what's going on. And in the process of him finding out what's going on, it ties you back to Lindsay Boggs. Now, Lindsay Boggs is an interesting thing because it's a hospital that still is standing today that has never been touched since Katrina. It's still completely wiped out from Katrina.
Wow.
And so it's this. So I use it as this nexus point that's where the spell went wrong, and that's where the story goes back to that place. There's something tied to that place,
right,
that brings it all back to that. And so
I gotta say, I love when people take real world events and like real locations and stuff and work it in, and the fact that it's a hospital that hasn't recovered since Katrina. And you're like, yeah, this is the perfect place to say this is where all of this like supernatural, crazy, demonic, like bad shit comes in because it's destroyed, and it makes it cool. It's like its own little lore now.
If you drive past it, it looks like it's demonically possessed, and that it's still it looks like
I believe you. So so one thing I wanted to say, so Jean and what was her name? I'm sorry.
Marie Laveau.
Marie Laveau. So Jean and Marie were lovers.
Yeah. So Jean Lafitte. Okay. So Jean Lafitte. I'm pretty sure. Have you ever heard of Jean Lafitte?
No.
Okay. That's good. No problem. Jean Lafitte was a pirate. Jean Lafitte was a real pirate, and he was actually instrumental in the Battle of New Orleans. He was when Jackson came down here, when the English were coming in. And we weren't doing so good, and they hired Jean Lafitte. Jean Lafitte brought in his crew, and Jean Lafitte's put his men on the cannons, and they lit them up because these guys were used to shooting cannons on ships, and they were real good, and they went in there. And so Jean Lafitte is huge in the Battle of New Orleans for winning the Battle of New Orleans and whatnot. And he was known. I mean, Jean Lafitte's. There's a place on Bourbon Street. It's called Jean Lafitte. It was actually owned by Jean Lafitte. It is the oldest bar in the United States. And it's you can still go in there. You can sit down. You can have a drink and everything. And it's a trip.
Oh, that's crazy.
So Jean Lafitte, like this place is Jean Lafitte. There's Crown Point, and then there's Barataria Bay. That's where Jean Lafitte's home was, and all this stuff. So he's a true legend. He was a pirate. He was a strong stone pirate back in the day, and he was a real legend. Now Marie Laveau was a real lady, and she was the voodoo queen down here. And she was a good lady. She actually did a lot of good stuff, man. She really did. But she has a supernatural, anytime you hear Marie Laveau, voodoo comes next. You know what I'm saying? So I took those two characters and basically made it out like Jean Lafitte faked his death. There's a whole thing where he drank the waters of life, which made him immortal. And so he fakes his death, and he winds up in New Orleans. Him and Marie, you know, they were partners for like 200 years. And so what wound up happening is along the way, they developed feelings for each other, and they became romantically involved, and they were true lovers. You know what I mean? And so when all of this happens, there's that extra element to it, that this was his, you know, this was more than just his partner. This was actually his love.
Yeah. That's, oh gosh, that's so cool. Okay. All right. Before we get too much more into, I'm totally enamored by this, but before we get too much more into it, let's go over your tiers real quick. So you've actually been in demand since December. So you're doing the awesome thing where you stay in demand, so people who maybe didn't find you before can still find you before you go to print.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So how much longer do you think in demand is about to stay open?
I want to say realistically, maybe 2 months. Maybe 2 more months. I'm going to say 2 more months. So
sometime July-ish, probably going to go down.
Yeah, I'm going to shut it down. Probably so.
Okay. So you got about 2-ish more months to go ahead and back. So let's go ahead and let them know how. How can they back you?
Typically you can go, if you've never done crowdfunding before, you go in, and if you go onto the perks over here, you'll see you can get this perk or back this perk. And then you'll pick out whichever one you want. I do have some add-ons. I have metal print add-ons. I have an actual copy of Count Carlos, which was one of my first crowdfunding books. I think I even have the t-shirt on there, and a couple of prints on there as well. So you can customize it up a little bit.
That's always a plus. That is always, and everybody who ever watches this show knows that I am a sucker for t-shirts. So I will be getting myself a God's Hand t-shirt featuring the man I am cosplaying, because I mean, it's badass art.
Hey, you're right. Thank you.
So at $15, you have what you call story time. So is this just a physical copy of the book?
Just a physical copy of the book.
Okay. And then $25, you get the physical copy of the book. Ooh, and a metal bookmark?
Yes, both signed.
Yes. Oh, I love that metal bookmarks are becoming a thing.
They are.
I'm so excited.
They are beautiful.
Okay, cool. So I'm spending $50 now is what just happened. Just being real. And then you have still $25 for international.
This is what you call first timers mistakes, right? So I set up the regular one, and I didn't put any shipping, any international shipping on it.
Right.
Now, it wasn't open to international buying. So if you wanted to buy it, you couldn't, because there was no shipping on it. But someone had already bought a couple of them. So I was like, God damn it. So I said, well, let me. And so I couldn't alter it.
Right.
And so I just said, well, let me make another one, call this one the international one. So it's the same thing. It just has a different shipping price on it.
Gotcha. Okay. Makes sense.
I'll know better next time.
Yes. And I mean, it happens. So to let you know, and to let anyone know who maybe isn't aware, if it's early days and you realize that there is a problem with one of your perks and somebody can't buy like what you were just saying, you can always hide the perk and duplicate it. And so I did have one person bring up the concern of they wanted to make sure that however many were claimed, the numbers were still there. I'm going to tell you right now, as a consumer, as somebody who has backed a lot of campaigns, I don't even know how many, it's been a lot. There's been a lot of them. I don't ever pay attention to how many other people have backed. The only thing that I pay attention to is it limited in the number that can back at that level? That is the only time I care about the number. So
that was my fear. It was the same fear. You know what I mean? Because it's like now I completely understand what you're saying. The first time out, you were so like, well, I got to keep these numbers up here so people see that other people are buying it.
So here's the funny thing.
You know what I mean?
You start hiding tiers, right?
Mm-hmm.
You still see it up here when they talk about how many backers you've got. It'll still say so. And there's people that have been like, all their tiers say 0, and it'll be like 5 backers.
So I need to put it on there. I'm telling you, man. It was definitely. I enjoyed it from that aspect. I learned a lot.
Yeah.
you know, by doing it on my own and kind of going through. And it was interesting because when I first started out, I had no affiliation or anything like that. And so
Right.
I was just, you know, I was listening to some YouTube stuff and I was kind of getting down, you know, keep your pitch, you know, video 3 minutes. You kind of want this, you kind of want that. And so I tried to keep it within those parameters. But there's some things you just have to learn. You got to go through and you got to kind of fall on your face a couple times to just get back up and do it.
That's very true. That's very true.
Process.
Another big thing that I always recommend is when you have your campaign preview page, not your mailing list, the actual preview page for your campaign, send that out to a couple of people that you trust. That's something that we at Red Valkyrie are more than happy to do for people because we've seen so many campaigns, and I actually have somebody who just sent me
That's
one
awesome.
today.
No,
that
that's awesome.
I'm going through before he launches next week. But
that is a great service to offer. I'm telling you right now.
Absolutely.
And if anybody's thinking about it, take advantage of it.
It's very helpful, especially
absolutely.
Even if I haven't made my own Indiegogo yet, but I have helped create I don't know how many. I've looked over I don't know how many, and I've backed I don't even know how many. And so when you're talking from all of those aspects, getting somebody who is likely going to turn into your consumer to take a look at it and say, this is what's going to work, this is what's going to sink you, is at least helpful. Doesn't mean you got to listen to a damn thing I say, but at least you got some opinion.
It gives you some direction.
Exactly.
It gives you some direction, which is helpful.
All right. Moving on with the tiers, we got the t-shirt. I'm always so excited about the t-shirts.
That is.
Especially with this particular logo. And I love how you did the red glow behind it. It really, on a black t-shirt, that really makes it pop. And
it did.
It gives you that super ethereal feel, which I'm really down for. So are the t-shirts shipping with the books, or are the t-shirts shipping separately?
It's either or. Now, if you want to get just the shirts, you can get just the shirt. Okay. If you want each one of the books that you order, it is part of the add-on package, so you can add that on.
Okay, and then they're all expected to come in August of this year.
Correct.
Fantastic.
Now, yeah, correct.
Oh, and look, we've got Joe Boo, who says that he backed you a while back, which is super awesome. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Who makes me laugh. You're working yourself to dead, Red. A little bit. It's okay. We're coming back from it. It's been one hell of a weekend, guys. Okay. All right. So for $50, and this is great. So for $50, you're going to get 2 copies of the book and the metal bookmark, which would be what it would have been. Are you getting 1 or 2 metal bookmarks?
You're going to get 1 metal bookmark, and you're also going to get a paper print with it.
That's awesome.
A small paper print.
So if you want to get one for you and a friend, and you guys can fight over who gets the bookmark and who gets the print, I would keep the bookmark because it's a weapon. So
it is. It can be.
Right?
It can be.
That's the one that you take with you when you go on the subway or something. If someone starts giving you the weird eye, you just whip it out, smack them a little, you're good. It's fine.
Stay away from the throat. Keep to the face. You'll be all right.
Keep to the face. Oni, I agree, says it looks a lot like 90s Shadow Man comic. It definitely reminds me of the 90s with the kind of aesthetic that it's got going. And I love it. I love every bit of it.
We talked about this. I forget who I talked with this about. I don't know if it was because I got to give a shout out to Nikki the Pipe. With Doc Salem, Nikki, Preston. Yeah, he's the one who kind of basically, because he's out in my neck of the woods.
Yeah,
he's out here in Louisiana. So, yeah, exactly. The Louisiana Preston. You know what I mean? You know he's from Louisiana. And he I contacted him, man, and we started talking, and we just hit it off, and we just we right there in that same spot. So that was kind of the jumping off point for me. Mm-hmm. And then when I was on his show, we were talking about this, and we were just talking about, because this is what I grew up with. You know, when I came in, you had Jim Lee was on Punisher War Journal, Mark Silvestri was on X-Men, Todd McFarlane was on he was on Hulk. You know what I'm saying? And so those guys were in there. As Leafield he was doing New Mutants right before X-Force started and stuff. And so you
Right.
had these guys kind of, this was what I kind of grew up with. And then, by the time I'm in my prime, these guys are running Image, and it was just like, man, it was art, 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 so much art. And that's kind of what I grew up with.
Absolutely. Sorry, Gargoyle, or Gargler, as I like to lovingly refer to him, always distracts me when he decides to blast into the chat. Is it true that witches use menstrual blood and pasta sauce for a love spell?
I don't know about witches, but I heard Italian women will do that shit.
Oh no, we don't. No, don't do that. Oh, that's terrible. Oh,
I tell you what, man.
So
I
sick.
see. If you want to know, one of the ones I heard this one time, and they were like, people who will make you lose your faith in humanity. And there was this girl, and she said, how long does it take before my boyfriend is going to become a vampire? I've been feeding him my menstrual blood for 2 weeks now, and he still hasn't turned yet. This was a serious question, and you're just like, holy shit, man.
That's
man.
That's just terrible.
That's just terrible, man.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I hate people. People are the worst.
So I'm not sure exactly how long it takes or who does this, but
don't do that. Don't ever do that to anybody ever. That's I don't care if you hate the person. Don't do that. That's so bad.
That's pretty rough. That's pretty rough.
Gosh. Oh, I'm gonna be sick. Okay, we're gonna move on. For a whopping $2,000, you get creator control. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, so this would have been really great if COVID, but we would still offer it up. So basically, what it is you would get all the stuff that's on there now, which is you get the books, you get bookmarks, you get a copy of Count Carlos. You also get a copy of Justice City Chronicles #1, which is the first book I ever did, which was in 2005. We printed through, we were published through Ape Entertainment. And I still got a few copies of that book. You get some large metal. You get the hat and the T-shirt. You get the original cover art. And then what's not on there, which is in the description, is you get to come to New Orleans Wizard World and sit behind the table with me and kind of experience what the convention looks like from the other side of the table. And then you also get to have input into the next 2 story arcs.
Oh, very cool.
Characters, you know what I mean? Like, kind of sit down and kind of go over here's the arc, here's kind of where we're going, where you kind of really get to see the guts of the story and get some input.
That's pretty fucking crazy, actually. Makes me wish that I had that kind of money. I do not, but that's pretty. That's a pretty sweet claim. So,
well, I tell you what, if you come down, we'll offer you that. You come down, you wear the get up, you can come sit behind the table for free. How about that?
You know what?
You know what I mean?
You got it, dude. Seriously, if I ever find a way to get my ass down to New Orleans, I'm 100%.
That's it.
I'm so there. That is awesome. So you said that there's a hat and a T-shirt. Is the hat also part of an add-on? Or
the hat is not yet, but I think I'm talking to my guy who's in charge of doing my shirts and stuff, and I want to see how viable the hat stuff is to make it an add-on.
Okay.
But I think we may add that. We may add the hats.
Very cool.
For everybody, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think originally we didn't because we wanted it to be limited to because I had a bunch of when I first did it, I had 1,000, I had a 1,500 tier, I had 500,000, 15, and 12. And I had got a few bites on the 5. I think I got 1 bite on the 15. But we wanted to limit that stuff to those upper tiers. You know what I'm saying? So we may do a different design for those, and we may do a different design for the ones we're going to release now. And that way, it's still a limited. We may do a different color for the ones for the upper tiers, and just do a standard version for the lower tiers.
Yeah. Well, that is super awesome. I'm 1,000% digging the way that you got your tiers laid out, and I like how it's more streamlined, especially now that you're in demand. which makes
Correct.
things easier for people to find. You and I have been talking, and you actually have another announcement. So let me just flip this over. There we are. By all means, sir, go ahead.
All right. So the announcement is for the new tier. Is this correct? I want to make sure because I have a lot of announcements. But
I mean, you can exclusive it up as much as you want.
This is the top. This is the top one. But in all fairness, I have a few announcements, but this is the premier diamond announcement.
Yeah.
And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna announce one specialty. We have one tier, one offer, one specialty. This is the diamond platinum tier. All right. This is the diamond platinum Shae tier. All right. So what we're gonna do is, right, for all the fans out there, right, what we're gonna do is we're gonna say, listen, if you get the one tier, which is it's gonna be the signature series, so you're gonna get the book, you're gonna get a bookmark signed, all right, but you're also gonna get the opportunity, the once in a lifetime opportunity to own a special limited edition Shae Zombie God's Hand hat. The hat that you see her wearing right now. That thing. Look at that. Look at that. You can have one of those. And it will be signed by her.
It will.
In gold. I mean,
it will.
Look, this is it. Maybe even in platinum. I'm not sure yet, but it'll be in one. It might even be bedazzled and have some jewels on the inside. It'll be the diamond platinum gold package. Okay. You can have this, right, for the low price of $50. $50. Now the shipping on it probably will be $25, but it's $75. I mean, look at that hat. That hat alone with her signature on it. Come on. You're talking about $125. That's a collector's piece. That's only going to go up in value as time goes on. As this channel blows up. You're not going to want to miss it.
And
that's
it's got
all
a
I'm
beautiful
saying.
Feather, and it will have the stitching that it's missing. It will have that for sure.
I used to sell things. I used to sell things back in the day, right? Let me tell you something. Look, when you got the good stuff, shit sells itself. This hat sells itself. It just sells itself. You know what I mean? Let me not get in the way anymore. Look, we're gonna if you put, let me put it like this. We don't even have to look. We'll put it up. Look at that. Look at that. That's a look, it's premium. Premium.
It ain't too bad.
She's being modest. She's very proud of her humility. It's a nice. It's good.
I'm a fan of it. I think that it turned out rather well. So if you are interested in getting this hat, pay attention to Anthony's page. Pay attention to his Twitter, and he will announce when it is live.
I will announce when it is live.
And it's only one. There's only one of these. So if you want it, that's the one to get.
I got a feeling it may go live tonight at midnight at the witching hour.
That's a good time for it to go live.
That's it.
Absolutely. Well, I'm obviously super excited about this. I think that it's a really cool opportunity, and it's something a little different, and it is 1,000%. It will be very rare. Even if I ever made another one of these, we're talking like one, and I won't let that one go.
There you go.
That one would be mine.
Right. This one will have the little bedazzled jewels on the inside.
It's gonna have my signature. I'll make it real nice for you. I promise.
There you go. It's already, look at it. It's already nice.
It's pretty sweet.
You know what I mean? It can only go from gold, diamond to platinum. I mean, it's just the way it is.
I appreciate you, Anthony, for sure. So
I appreciate you allowing me to come on, man. I'm having a lot of fun.
Heck yeah. So God's Hand, this is a really, really cool campaign. And I watched your video before I brought you on, and I am kind of in love with it. I don't know who you got that did the voiceover.
It's Morgan Freeman's younger brother.
I was gonna say it's basically Morgan Freeman. It's
He's
amazing.
in the Freeman family.
So as long as you don't mind, I think that we should play this for everybody else to see, because it's pretty spectacular.
Absolutely.
At nightfall, a string of murders in New Orleans has been uncovered. These aren't your typical acts of violence. The victims bear an unknown supernatural mark. When the city's protector, Marie Laveau, is found murdered, a collective team of reformed sinners with supernatural powers, led by the immortal Jean Lafitte, are called in to solve the case. As they delve deeper into Marie's death, they begin to suspect the rise of the Black Queen, an entity that has been asleep for centuries. Now awakened, her evil threatens to free the ancient gods of chaos and cover the world in a cloak of darkness. I smell human. As her minions crawl out of the shadows and threaten to unleash horror upon the city, only Jean Lafitte and his team of hunters stand between the darkness and the total destruction of the city. All help now rests in a team simply known as God's Hand.
Hey guys, my name is Anthony Figaro, and I am the creator of the God's Hand story. This idea was created by a challenge. I was asked if I could create a story that was uniquely New Orleans, which would showcase the mystique and the flavor of the culture while using real New Orleans legends. Thus, the God's Hand story was born. To help me bring this story to you guys, I brought together the same talented team that successfully crowdfunded the Chronicles of Count Carlos back in 2017. Jesse Heggie, who did all the coloring on Count Carlos, is back, and he's going to use his amazing skills to bring the supernatural world of God's Hand to life. I also have Marcus DeGisu back. He did a great job on lettering Count Carlos and played a vital part as editor to give the book that polished feel. And of course, I've got Armando Leduc, one of the main writers from Count Carlos, on board to help me on the production end of this. Believe me, it takes a lot of work to bring you guys a superior product. Packing all this talent into every volume, we're going to bring the God's Hand world to life so you can feel every raw, untamed emotion, every twist, every turn on every page firsthand. We're asking you guys, the fans out there, to help us bring this project to life. With your donations, we will successfully fund this campaign and get all those great rewards out to everyone who helped us by backing this book. Speaking of rewards, we have a lot of great perks and exclusive items that you will only be able to get through this Indiegogo campaign. Just to give you a sample, we'll be offering metal bookmarks. We will also have metal prints. We have cool limited edition cardstock prints, as well as an exclusive Indiegogo cover that you will not be able to get anywhere else except on this campaign, so don't miss out. We also have a mystery artist that will do a special variant cover for us that will be released to everyone who backs the book once we hit our goal. I can't wait to tell you guys who it is. So you guys getting excited yet? Because there's more. We also put together a special 48-hour early bird special for anyone who pledges within the first 2 days of the campaign. So you definitely want to get in on that. Thanks again, guys, for watching, and I'll catch you guys at the wrap party. Special thanks to Shane Bouvier, Christopher Leach, Brian Lodages, and everyone here at Heroes Corner for all the work and all their support. You guys did a great job helping bring this to life.
Freaking awesome. Okay. Super excited. So who was your special guest artist?
Okay, if you scroll down, it'll show you. Keep going. Right there. Those are the layouts. We went with one. Andy Kuhn is the artist.
Nice.
No, we went with one. That's the one we're gonna go with.
I like it. It's I think it's a really cool looking one that seems I'm intrigued to see what's gonna happen. I see that there's some bodies. And,
yeah, we're gonna. I think we're gonna turn. Okay, so we're gonna turn one. We haven't got the stretch goals out yet. Mm-hmm. We have been building them. So because a couple of them have already been hit. And the one that they just hit on 12 is the trading cards. We have 2 trading cards, which now everybody will get. They're being finalized right now, so I'll have those up this week coming up. But I think also what I'm going to do, because in full disclosure, we were supposed to ship in March, at the end of March, and that didn't happen. So what I wanted to do to make things, to add a little bit to it is I think what we're going to do is we're going to take the Andy Kuhn cover and we're going to turn it into a tarot card, the
Ooh.
Death's tarot card, and that'll be given to every one of the backers as a token of appreciation for being patient with us. It'll be signed and everything like this, and it'll be limited to just the backers. You won't be able to buy it or anything like this. And once the campaign's over, it's done. You'll never see it again. So it's just a way to basically say we appreciate, you know, people being patient with us.
That's great, and I love that you're doing that, because a lot of the problem that a lot of people have with like the mainstream, the bigger guys, is that they've lost touch with what matters to the backers, what matters to the people that are going to actually go through and give money for your project. And in their minds, they're like, well, we're a big publisher and we don't need you. We do whatever we want. But at the end of the day, if you don't buy their product, they don't sell anything, which is what they're running into right now.
It's a disconnect. It's just a disconnect between the creator and the people. And I think crowdfunding is it's a different animal, because when you go in and you run a crowdfunder, it's like, man, you understand, you fight for those dollars, and you go into these people, especially first time out. I mean, essentially what you're asking these people is, and I don't know how other people have felt about it, but myself is that you're essentially first time out, you're essentially asking them to back you. That's what you're asking them. Yeah. And that's what they are. They're backing you. They're backing your reputation. They're backing your personality. If you know you, they're putting their money behind you. And so there is this thing of, you know, I don't know how other people feel about it, but myself, and this is one of the reasons why I found myself, you know, leaning towards and eventually, you know, becoming Comicsgate, is that, you know, I feel a connection to that. I feel like, well, hey, you know, man, these people back me. They put their trust behind me. That should mean something. It should mean something to me. And so it does. And so that's why we were, you know, when I talked it over with my editor and whatnot, we were like, you know, because we ran into some problems early on that were just unforeseeable. Yeah. And it put us about 3 months behind. And it was just like, man, it was like, shit, you know, we felt bad about it. And so we were like, well, regardless of what happens, the product is going to get made. That is our primary goal. In the meantime, what we were like is that we feel like we want to, what we say down here in New Orleans is lanyap. You know, lanyap is extra. It means we want to put some, and that's what we'll probably name it, the lanyap pack. And it'll basically have extra stuff in it that just wasn't, you know, that we don't expect. And probably that'll be the tarot card. We'll probably put some extra prints in there and some stuff like that. And just I think we might even put some Mardi Gras beads in there. You know, some stuff that's just like saying, hey, we appreciate you being patient with us. We appreciate you backing us. We appreciate your support. You know, so much so that, hey, look, man, this is what this means to us. We want to make this right. However, whatever that looks like, however that sounds, whatever that tastes like, we want to make it right. You know.
That's so amazing. I love that you care that much. That makes it should make anyone who's on the fence because maybe they don't know you, that should really kind of calm any of their reservations, be like, nah, let's do this. Like, obviously Anthony cares. You're not going to get screwed over.
I'll tell you what, Shae, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, by all means, go.
I find that those of us who grew up in comics, and kind of, you know, and have a love for this stuff, you know what I mean? It's, you know, it comes natural to us to do stuff like that, because it's like, you know, we've been here this whole time. Right. You know what I'm saying? This is part of us. So it's like, we get it, man. Like, hey, you know, this is the deal. And then we think that this is what a great opportunity crowdfunding has become to bring down those of us because I know there's a lot of people who fought this. You know, my first convention was in 2003, and you used to go to these conventions, man, and you'd have lines of people waiting to show portfolios. And let me tell you something, you had some really stiff competition out there. Oh yeah. And you'd go to and I mean, these people, because they knew you had to bring your A game, brother, to basically get in. And so the competition was tough, and I was much like a few other people who kind of fell off of comics for a while. And when I came back to it, I was like, what the fuck happened? What happened here? You know what I mean? And all of a sudden I'm like, well, wait a minute, hold on a second, man, what's going on here,
Right.
And so crowdfunding has been a great way to allow those of us who still love it and still feel like we can compete, to get back into it. And it's been fun. It's been fun to get back into it.
Absolutely. So Oni's got a question for you. What were your inspirations for creating this comic? So you had Lovecraft. I know that we talked about that.
I mean, New Orleans itself is. I mean, you grow up here, and it's so weird. It's so strange because I've never really left New Orleans. I lived in Georgia when I was like 10 years old for like 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
But like other than that, and not that I haven't traveled to too many places either. But I've always lived here, so you don't. It's so weird talking about things because you don't know. Like there's things here daiquiri shops, right? You know what? You know daiquiris, right? Okay, so we have drive-through daiquiri shops here. So like you can just drive through. That's what I'm saying. But that's normal to me. Like I don't know that's insane anywhere else, right?
Why is that not here?
It's a good example for you. Like I went somewhere one time. I went to Houston, and they were like, my cousin took me out. And we went out, and like all these people are out, and they're all having a good time, and I feel so weird. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't understand why I feel so weird. And then I finally realized it was because none of them are drinking. Because in New Orleans, you can drink outside. So I have never been to events my entire life outside where people aren't drinking and getting loaded. So when I get around people who are outside not drinking, getting loaded, it's weird. It's strange.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on here? Something's not right here. Something's off.
This is wrong.
Right. So voodoo, like, that spiritual compass, that spiritual stuff, how cemeteries are above ground, they're like cities and stuff.
Yep.
We're very, very close to that. So a lot of this stuff is really, it's just the evolution of the city. The city itself is its own culture. I mean, supernatural is New Orleans. I mean, you cannot go to New Orleans and not feel that energy down here. What inspired me was, like I said, a young man who worked for the local news station saw me, and he saw my work, and he said, "Hey, I want to do a story." His name's Christopher Leach. Christopher's actually the voice in the Morgan Freeman voice. Christopher's a great guy. And he says, "Look, I want to do a story on your local story." And I was like, "Cool." And so he calls me up. He says, "Hey, you got any stories about New Orleans?" And I said, No, I don't. He says, "Well, if you had to make one up, what would it be?" And so I started making this story up, and I'm like, this is a really good story, man. Holy shit. I'm like, wait a second, because he's like, yeah, we're going to do this trailer and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And we're going to promote it and this, that. And I'm like, well, you're going to promote something I don't have? I'm like, wait a minute, let me make this thing. And so the challenge was, to make a story about New Orleans using New Orleans legends. And so it was like, then it started to come together. And then it was just like, I had an idea about, basically like a CSI, except it was a paranormal crime scene investigator team. Mm-hmm. It was the same concept that they would go out. What you would do is you'd have a vampire and a warlock and a witch, and you'd have a empath and a psychic, and they would be on a team and they would go investigate these crime scenes. Mm-hmm. And so when I started to take that and then marry it to, well, what if I use Jean Lafitte? And there was this organization, and there was like this upper tier, this intelligence unit almost. And so you wound up with this idea of, okay, so then you have Marie Laveau and Jean Lafitte. Well, how do you make that interesting, right? What kind of hook do you put on that? Right. And so you go, okay, well, what if Marie Laveau died? And what if Jean Lafitte had to avenge? And then you say, well, what else can you do to it? It's like, okay, well, let's take this and pull this entire layer and say, well, what you're looking at right now and all this stuff that you're going to get exposed to in this story is essentially a story with another story underneath. Right. And that once we get into this first story, it peels. By the time you get to the end of it, there is closure with the characters involved. But by the time you get to the end, in the process of getting to closure, you peel back this other thing, and you go, oh, there's a whole nother level to this that even the characters themselves aren't aware of. So by the time you get to the end, you basically have caught up with the characters, and so the next two arcs of the story, you're in the same seat as the characters because they're uncovering and discovering this stuff with you as you're going along.
It's so cool. I really
so I don't know if that answered the question. I don't know if that helped you, hurt you, confused you.
I mean,
feel a lot better talking about it. So.
I feel like it answered it because and that's something that I think is very uniquely New Orleans. Like, I'm originally from Utah. Utah is its own cultural experience.
Right. Right.
It's not as much fun as Nolans. Like it's a lot more like people are going to ask you if you need help having your groceries carried in.
That's good though.
Things along that line. Like it's kind of like if you remember Old Town Americana, that's what a lot of Utah tends to be like. And they're about 5 years behind the rest of the country on everything. So any major trend is going to be 5 years late coming to Utah. For I guess the Rockies keeps it out. It's always
you're
been
still ahead of New Orleans. New Orleans is like 10 years behind. They call us the Big Easy because everything's real easy. We're nice and slow, and we don't move fast for nobody. You know, it's like New York, but like on New York if they were on Xanax, right? You're just kind of like, yeah, it's okay. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I'm going over here. Yeah, no, I'm good. You know, just everything's real laid back.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think that probably something that is really similar between New Orleans and like Salt Lake City, for example, is usually when people are from Utah, they don't normally leave Utah. You kind of you grow up there, you stay there. I'm the rebel because I left, and for a long time after I left, my family started referring to me in the past tense. So they were like, wow, she was a really wonderful girl. And I'm like, I'm still alive. I'm across the country. Damn. There's like, I remember when she used to be here. And
remember like, Shae? Remember that? Right. Like, I'm right here at the table, guys. I can
like,
hear you.
Hi. But it's like, that's what happens in Utah when you leave. And so I think that it's really cool that you've taken so much inspiration from where you're from, especially because if you haven't traveled a lot, if you haven't left New Orleans, you know, all that much, it's a lot harder to pull from it because you don't necessarily know what people don't know. So you're writing stuff and you're assuming people are on the same page as you, and then you send it out to some editor and they're like, the hell does this mean? That makes no sense. And you're like, oh, you don't know what that is?
Correct. And and that becomes the real, and I'm somewhat sensitive to that, and that becomes the real fun of the story, because then you're not boxed into New Orleans, right? Because this is the other thing. Like you see a lot of stories that take place in New Orleans and they use New Orleans as a backdrop. But what I want to do with Jean Lafitte is New Orleans. And so Jean Lafitte, you can then take Jean Lafitte, and that becomes the whole fun of it. Now Jean Lafitte can go to Europe. Now Jean Lafitte can go to Germany. He can go to these places, and you can then have New Orleans brought out. And now he can interact with the world. Because like I can tell, I was like 17 to 18. And I went to Florida. And I'm in Florida, you know, and I'm in the bar and shit. And so, first of all, they close things down at 2:00, which is weird to me. Like New Orleans is a 24/7 town, right? So they start closing everything down, and I'm like, okay, cool. You know, I got my drink and shit. I'm like, hey, can I get a to-go cup? And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, a to-go cup, man. They're like, we don't. What is a to-go cup? I'm like, well, you put it. It's a cup so I can leave. And they're like, you can't take this outside. I'm like, what do you mean? How? And it's a culture. Like you're like, what do you mean I can't take it outside?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Like they don't know what a to-go cup is. You know, it's like liquor stores, right? So in New Orleans, there is no liquor stores, right? You buy liquor everywhere. You go to 7-Eleven, you can go to Shell Station, like you go anywhere and there's liquor everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, so it's, you know what I mean? So it's like you wake up at 3:00 in the morning, you're like, I'm hankering for a shot of some Fireball. You just run right up to the Shell Station, like, give me one of those right there. Here you go. You know what I mean? And so there is no liquor stores. So you know what I mean? It's like, it's so a part of the culture here. And so that becomes the fun part of, then you take Jean Lafitte, who is New Orleans, and you then go put him out into the world, and then it's like, you know, you get to see this kind of like, what do you mean? What is this?
Yeah.
You don't know this? What do you mean you don't know that? You know what I mean? And you get to
go have him go to Salt Lake and then try and figure out why all of his drinks are watered down and the bartender won't serve him because he's already had to in the past hour.
Exactly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what is this, man? You know?
Yeah, it's not easy being an alcoholic in Utah for sure, because
alcoholics find a way, kiddo.
A lot of work. It requires so much work. Like my dad's a recovering alcoholic. I've got a grandpa who was that. the amount of work they had to go through to maintain alcoholism, I was like, you really wanted that drink, didn't you?
And
they
were like, willing to go to any lengths.
Yep. So you got to go to a special store. It's only open on certain days. Like
that just means you got to stock up on those days. That's what.
They did. They did. There's a lot of drinking in the basement.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, I am going to. I know, right? It always makes me laugh when you kind of start looking at things like that, and it's like, I mean, alcoholism is never funny, obviously, but at the same time,
it depends.
You got to learn to laugh at it if you can.
You have to. There's a rule. There's a rule. If you go into Alcoholics Anonymous, there's one rule, and it's Rule 62, and that is the only rule in Alcoholics Anonymous. And Rule 62 is don't take yourself too damn serious. And that's it. That is the only rule. You know what I mean? It's just like, hey, man, it's like, it's all good, dude. You know, it's not, I mean, it is a deadly thing. Don't get me wrong. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, it's, there is a way out. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
No, it's, and if you can't laugh at yourself, then, I mean, really, and, like, I mean, come on, I'm look at me. Like, if you can't laugh at yourself,
it's so good. I would never laugh at that. It's just too good to laugh at. I mean, look at that. This is
I think I might have sent a picture to my mom, and she was like, "Well, that's a choice." I was like, "Yeah,
that's the one thing I'm gonna be showing at Christmas time. Look, she used to be such a nice girl. Look at her now. Look at her. Just look at her.
She's just skin and bones." All right, I'm gonna pose to the chat. If you have any final questions, I'm going to need you to get them in quickly because we are starting to ramp down a little bit. I was all thinking I was going to have 500 questions, and then I just got so enamored with the book, and I can't remember a damn one of them other than why do I not already have this? And why have I not already backed this? Is really the only two questions that I have in my head. But you know what? Before we get off of here, before I start my next stream and wash all this off so I can look like a normal person, I will be backing for sure. This is a really fun concept, and like I said, I love the fact that you're bringing in so much culture from New Orleans into this, and so people who have never been, like me, people who have only heard, and you know, the only thing that you ever hear about New Orleans, you hear Mardi Gras, booze and beads, and voodoo, and that's it. Like
this is true.
That's all that I've ever heard.
What about the food? Have you heard about the food?
I've heard that there is food, and it is distinctly New Orleans, and that's all that I have ever heard.
Yes, I promise you, the food here is complete. Like I didn't. This is another thing. I got a friend of mine come down from California, and he says, he goes, Jesus, you guys, you cook everything in butter? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, we usually put that stuff on after we cook it. And I'm like, well, no, you use it while you're cooking it. I mean, when I say we use butter, I mean we use sticks of it. And we just throw it in there, and we put everything in while we're cooking. And when it comes out, it's just, I mean, the food will kill you. I mean, don't get me wrong, but you'll feel great dying. It'll be one of those things where you just be like, I know this is going to kill me, but I have to eat it. I can't, you'll at least die happy.
I mean, at least you got that part, right?
So you can die eating while catching beads, drinking liquor, and and casting spells. It's awesome.
Yeah, Gargoyle is a terrible person. I'm not reading it out loud. I put it up on the screen. I'm not reading it out loud. Well, I'm very much excited for this. You hit your funding goal, which is great, but I'm a little bit upset that it is only at 12,000. I really think that this is probably something that should be a lot higher, especially because the art looks amazing. It's definitely kind of got that nostalgia feel with the 90s. The story seems incredibly interesting and totally up my alley for sure. And I feel like you as a creator, like, even if this book isn't necessarily up your alley, you as a creator should be something that people are wanting to back, which I think is really awesome to see.
Thank you.
It makes me very excited for the future for sure. Casey Fisher brought up one more. He wants to know, what are your artistic inspirations?
Well, Casey, sometimes it's amazing. Even though we're from New Orleans, an area, but that some of my inspirations have come from the beach. Because we used to we'd go down to Florida and stuff like that. We'd sit out on the beach and listening to the waves and whatnot in the sun. I get inspiration from that. But as far as my comic book stuff, it's strictly from those 90s creators. You know what I mean? I draw a lot of inspiration from internal stuff, but style wise, storytelling wise, craft wise, it comes from a lot of the 90s creators. You know what I mean? Like I said, Jim Lee, huge influence, Mark Silvestri, huge influence. Later on, Frank Miller's writing, huge influence. And so, that I take a lot of influence from that, but it's just, definitely the 90s and the 80s definitely influenced me. Thundercats, G.I. Joe, Transformers, like all that stuff that was, I don't know, it's just, I love good storytelling. I love a story that pulls you in, that totally enamors you and has you completely just hooked in. And then it entertains you and brings you to this place. And I think that's an awesome thing to do, especially in the climate today, to be able to take people and allow them to go on a ride, to go on a journey, and to stop everything else. The entire world stops, and you're there in that story, and you're enjoying yourself, and you're going on this adventure. And a good story will take you away, even if you're only reading for 5, 10, 15 minutes, but it'll make you feel like out there.
Oh, yeah.
Man,
Absolutely. So. I completely agree. And as does Casey, that's really, it's really nice to hear that kind of passion behind it. Oni wants to know, did heavy metal music play any influence?
No, let me say this. It depends on what you call in heavy metal. Like I wasn't a metalhead. Now I liked Black Sabbath, you know what I'm saying? But I was more, New Orleans is more, not to say that there wasn't metal here in New Orleans, but I was more of I like the blues. I like old music, right? I'm a very mellow cat. So I like the blues. I like Sabbath. I like stuff like that. I never did get into metal. And again, I don't know what you mean by metal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Whether you mean in death metal or
right.
Sabbath.
Or were you talking? Sabbath. I'm in Sabbath, bro. I'm all in. You know what I mean? War Pig, Iron Man is probably no bullshit. I had an older cousin, and that's really what it was. My older cousin Frank, and we're all Dagos, right? So it's Tony, Frank, Nico. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Johnny. You know what I mean? Like it's a bunch of people sitting around listening to Black Sabbath and shit. But he was my older cousin, like older brother to me and stuff. And he's like 10 years older than me. So when I was little, man, so when I'm 7, he's 17. You know what I mean? And I remember Iron Man. That was one of the first songs I remember from when I was a kid. And I just remember digging it from jump. You know what I mean? Just digging that.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I'm totally down for this. This is a really cool project, and I definitely want to see you get hired. So you got 2 more months to get in on this if you haven't already. You got at midnight tonight. This is going to be going up, so make sure you are ready for that. Because there's only the one. I'm not doing more of these. There's just
only one, baby. Only one.
It's going to be super awesome. Honestly, Anthony, thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you, Shae. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. You've been a great ambassador for new creators coming in. You really have.
Oh, I appreciate that. I really try. Yes, Steve, I am signing it. So yeah, so that'll be part of it. And Ink Spot's your jerk. He says, I can't believe you didn't cosplay for this stream. Oh, Ink, you're lucky. I love you. But yeah, so this will be signed. It will be signed in shimmery gold and potentially, probably not bedazzled, but I'll make it. It'll be badass.
It'll be bad. That's it. It'll be bad.
Absolutely. So make sure that you're on the lookout for that. Thank you to everybody in the chat for coming out. You guys are completely phenomenal people. If you haven't already backed it, I'm going to post the link here. Right there. Okay, so if you haven't already backed it, click on that link in the chat. You can also go into the video description. Make sure you go and get it, take a look at it and get yourself at least a book. But in all honesty, like there's t-shirts, there's all kinds of cool stuff. Don't miss out on any of this because this is a really awesome book and a really cool opportunity for you guys to get in on it. And really, I just appreciate having everybody come out. You guys are amazing. So
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And we will catch you next time, everyone. Have a great night.